Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an important hearing about retirement security. And it's also a story about how Washington does or does not respond to the challenges that working people across this country face. While I am very pleased to hear Chairman Roscom affirm the importance of the contingency fee system so that working people can have their day in court when they're abused, and I'm pleased to have an industry representative here summoned by our Republican colleagues who affirms the importance of the Social Security system as an important pillar of retirement security, which we don't often hear in this room. There are concerns that I have about the overall issue of an estimated $17 to $18 billion each year that Americans lose because of conflicts of interest. I appreciate the testimony of each of the witnesses here. I rather expect that you are the leaders in your profession and that you have helped the security of hundreds, if not thousands, of American families, and I applaud you for your efforts to do that. I don't think you wake up every day trying to rip some people off, but I think as in any profession, there are some people in this business who do that, and there are many more not intending to rip people off, but simply motivated by the system of incentives that is in play here that encourages and incentivizes conflicts of interest. Now, whether the administration has come up with the best answer and the appropriate answer, I'm not sure. What I do know is that today, in evaluating this answer, we have 5 people here on behalf of the providers of this service, and we have 1 person here on the side of the retirees and the consumers of those services, and that's about the standard ratio in this place. And also, I haven't found that the administration was really in a race to solve this problem, which is another difficulty we have here in Washington, because if you look at what occurred here, it was way back in 2010 that this rule was proposed. Every witness we have today had a chance to comment on it. Over 300 people did. And after those comments, instead of acting, the administration withdrew the proposal. And may well have been, having looked at it some, may well have been well justified in removing it because it was not the right way to proceed. And then we went from 2011, 12, 13, 14, finally to this year, and the administration proposed another answer, with many people having said they didn't want anything to be done in this area. They wanted to leave the situation just like it is. And maybe it's not $17 or $18 billion that is lost every year. Maybe it's only half that. Maybe it's only $4 or $5 billion a year. But it is a big enough loss to families across this country that there ought to be some meaningful response to it. And so this year, we had almost 3,000 comments, including, I expect, from some of the individuals that are here. They've had an opportunity to be heard there. And now we are at a point in the regulatory process when the Department of Labor cannot come here this morning and defend its own rule because the comment period has ended. We can't hear those arguments, but what we can know at this point in the regulatory process is that the objections that are being raised here today, that were raised over the last several years, can be considered in the development of the final rule. So I am for a final reasonable rule that takes into consideration objections that have been raised, but sees as its principal responsibility, as ought to be the principal responsibility of this Congress, to protect retirees against conflicts of interest and ensure that they get top quality services. There are companies that focus their attention on poor, more economically disadvantaged customers, and they seem to be able to comply with a reasonable standard to avoid conflicts of interest. Mr. Silvers, are you familiar with some of those companies that already are out there seeing their focus on working families?
There has been in the last 10, 15 years, as there's been increasing awareness of the risk posed by conflicts of interest and investment advice, there's a wide range of firms that offer conflict-free advice in a variety of manners. But I think what's really important here is that if you actually look at the rule, My fellow witnesses who are in this business, I very much suspect, if this rule goes through more or less as you're urging, that my fellow witnesses who are actually in the business of providing advice will be doing so happily to all of their clients afterwards.
Thank you very much. And the problems, as you see it out there, are pervasive and deserve a reasonable response through the regulatory process, not prejudiced by congressional interference.